View from the Gutters, episode 125. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Umbrella Academy, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 10601.
Welcome to View from the Gutters.
Hey, everybody.
Episode
125. I'm Andrew Chard.
I'm Tobias Panchin.
I'm Kaylee Fleeman.
I'm Kit DeForge.
Brant Gillihan Eddy.
And I'm Kate. No, Kate's gone. It's Kate's birthday.
It is Kate's
Yay.
birthday. Happy birthday, Kate.
Yeah, so we gave him the night off.
It's like Tiny Tim's chair.
We didn't force him to be
Little
here.
bit on the side.
We told
Will
him
he ever
that he
come
better
back?
not show up or there'd be trouble.
Yeah,
Too old to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't even know how old he is.
I don't either.
I think he's the same age as me, but I'm not sure.
I've never asked.
I thought he was your friend.
I'm not ageist, Kaylee.
I
know
don't-
that age doesn't matter.
I don't keep track of my friends' ages. I think
Okay,
that's rude.
being age blind is not actually a legitimate help.
No, I just
to the
I
problem.
don't. I
You
don't
need to be
see
aware.
age, Kaylee. I
You-
just don't see it.
I can't perceive the passage of
What he's trying
time.
to say is he can't count.
That
shouldn't
one.
have to.
That's the one.
have to.
Don't out these secrets on the air.
So that's announcement one. Announcement number two. Thank you to our episode sponsors: Brian May, Tony Cortero, Brandon Hill, and Addison Appleby. There, I said all of them. Are you happy?
Yes,
you
I'm much
vulture?
happier now.
Announcement three, and I'm going to coach this with the word probably. Probably. We are going to be offering View from the Gutters t-shirts.
Yes.
We did some research over the weekend, and it looks like you can do Teespring and Teazilly, depending on whether you're in the U.S. or Europe.
Cool.
And you can offer t-shirts pretty easily. So we're going to do that thing. It should be available when this episode drops.
Yep. We'll put a
Please
link.
forgive me if I'm going to be figuring this out between the time that we record and the time we launch. So hopefully they will be available.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about these things, shoot me an email and be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you should totally do this."
Yeah. Help us with our.
But I'm
T-shirts.
going to say with 95% certainty that they will be available for you to purchase if you are interested.
Yeah, and I think are still working out pricing.
Yeah, it's going to be somewhere around $20.
Yeah.
And I think the shipping is pretty good.
Okay. Cool.
So
Well, we'll put a link.
we're going to try
On
and get
the
them as low as
website.
possible for the initial offering. Going to kind of do this as a test bed, and if it's
Yeah.
successful, we'll do it some more.
Then we'll jack up the prices.
to like at
Yeah,
least
totally.
$80.
to engorge
Yeah.
ourselves on our financial
An
success.
additional
Yeah.
$5 for every girl T-shirt, even though it's less fucking fabric.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
absolutely.
They will
totally.
cost
But kid,
more.
it's really complicated to contour the design of the
Yeah.
shirt to variable
We have to
body
pay
shape.
someone to think about tits.
That's
I
right,
mean,
that's
you don't know
right.
how hard that is.
But in the future, we may be able to
Wait,
do
that should
other
be the
things like
discount.
hoodies.
That's what I was
So something to look for in the future, and we'll link this in the
Yeah.
show notes on the website.
Yes, we will.
But for right now, we're talking about the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, and this was pitched to us by a Patreon supporter,
This is-
Brandon.
Brandon Hill.
Brandon Hill.
Pitched this.
Hash
and-
Brown, #1 Chard fan. And,
Hash Brown #1 chart?
Yeah, Hash Brown, #1 Chard fan.
or
It's real.
hashtag, or Chard #1 Hash Brown fan
Yeah.
is the other one you can use.
Excellent.
Both of those will work
Yeah.
for whatever the hell those do.
Mm-hmm.
But since Brandon is not here to talk about it, who would like to go first?
Why
Because
not?
I know that, Brant, you've expressed an interest in this before.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure, Kit, you're a pretty big fan of this.
I know, actually.
No?
No.
You're not cradling both volumes lovingly?
These are lovingly borrowed from the Loving Library, the Loving Week I had to do this loving thing. So
You say
yeah.
loving, it doesn't sound like that.
Yeah, I know. See, it's all about how you say the words,
Yeah.
not what you're actually
Oh,
saying. So,
I understand that.
All right. Well, then, Brant, how about you get us started?
Okay.
What did you think about the Umbrella Academy?
So I made a tragic mistake that was really distracting for me before reading the Umbrella Academy. It's not the Umbrella Academy. It's just Umbrella Academy.
No, it is the Umbrella
No,
Academy.
it's Umbrella Academy.
The Umbrella Academy is on the cover. I'm sorry, and it's actually on your. On
You
your
wrote it
notes
down,
right
too.
There.
Shut up.
Wow. See, at least I could claim I had nothing in front of me.
Ooh, let's fill this with semantics. Yes,
So anyway,
my favorite.
my mistake was when I pitched it or when Chard pitched it way back in the day. I remember Chard going off a little bit about his appreciation, perhaps, of Gerard Way.
I was just explaining that, like, a lot of people will write this book off because they're like, oh, fucking Rockstars thinks he can write comic books.
Yeah.
And that, like, I just want to say this is different than Gene Simmons' Dominatrix.
Yeah.
That this is not that.
The problem I had is that I couldn't remember that part, so I Googled him, and then I was reading this while still having on my other screen a picture of him in his, like, My Chemical Romance garb, and I was just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this.
What's the worst that you could say?
Things are better off this way.
Yeah.
Both of you.
Sorry.
I just want you to know. Yeah, go ahead.
No, so it was just one of those things where I mean, I don't begrudge the guy being an artist or having his other things. It was just there was something about having his picture open, and I don't know why I didn't close it at the time. But it was like I can't
look
stop.
away.
I have to read this, and I have to look over at him occasionally and be like, "That's him, really?"
Little hate love there.
Little hate love.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's it.
So I did find myself occasionally having that question to myself, and I was wondering if it was about the picture of him versus my experience with the book, where one of the things that I think is so successful about some of the writers that we talk a lot about, Warren Ellis, Mike Mignola, who writes Atomic Robo? Clevenger, right?
Yeah, Brian
Yeah.
Clevenger.
Is that I think that their artistry comes in the fact that how easy you accept the absurd things that they decide to throw at you. And Umbrella Academy is full of a lot of that stuff, which I found very amusing, but occasionally it felt kind of forced to me in a way where I was almost like, wow, you decided to amp this scene up 2 more notches than you needed to really let me know that this is zany. But again, was it that, or was it just that I was looking at a guy in makeup with a weird chain necklace and a Google Images search that I still had up on the other thing, where I was like, fucking rock stars trying so hard to be cool, but I don't. That's not my instincts as far as how I tend to respond to things. But
Yeah.
it just made me walk away being like, maybe I should have closed his picture.
It's now your wallpaper, isn't it? That's
No,
all right.
it's not.
I don't think that it's
Pictures of him
entirely
above his
you.
bed.
Yeah.
I had kind of a similar reaction to this, and I walked away from it not hating it, not really even disliking it. Like, I enjoyed elements of this, but I felt really kind of mixed about it. Like, it feels like it was reaching for a certain threshold that it never quite reached, at least for me. It very much reminded me of Clevenger and Mignola and Ellis to an extent. Kind of that, weird, wacky, out there, kind of next wavy sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it never really hit the groove. It's like he kind of had an idea of what he wanted to do, but not how to do it. And it never quite found itself. It never quite hit that level where I went, oh my God, that's so ridiculous. Ha ha ha.
No, what's interesting is I actually felt the little vignettes before Apocalypse Suite and between Apocalypse Suite and Dallas, which Apocalypse Suite and Dallas are the 2 main trades. They felt kind of whimsical, and I didn't dislike their kind of like leaving me hanging sensation. I felt like Dallas was more successful as a story, as far as like being weird, having a story, kind of making me be like, how do I feel about this premise? And then kind of selling me on it by the time it was over. I felt a lot more investment personally in the characters from it. And so part of me wonders if some of it is just he's becoming a better writer. Yeah. Like, clearly his art was only at a certain level, which is why he had a partner come on and take over the art. And I wonder if that's true of his writing, too.
Did you read the shorts from before? Yeah.
Like, they
Those
weren't
aren't
bad.
in the trade. They're in the one that's all of it.
Okay, yeah, I did not read those.
Because there's like 4 shorts.
Yeah, I saw those.
Yeah. Just for the listeners who may not have known.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm on board with some of what you're saying. Like, it does feel kind of like someone's vacation into comics. And so that's why I feel like they never really had the time to invest fully in something in the way that like a Warren Ellis or a Mignola have, because they like live full time in comics. Like they're always thinking comics. And so this felt very much like someone jumping into comics for a minute and trying to do that. And I guess I just felt like it didn't have enough time to breathe. I'm with you that I much preferred Dallas to the first one. Not because the first one was bad, but because I think Dallas was significantly better accomplished in that, and like in the storytelling. Like it had more characters that were interesting. It had more stuff going on, and I think focusing on like one character is the main focus and then everyone else is kind of a side character to number 5 made the story work a little bit better. Where the first one had kind of like bad X-Men syndrome, where it's like, who am I supposed to be caring about?
It definitely felt, especially in the first one, like I am a name and a power.
Yeah.
And like the characterization wasn't very strong. Like the main things that I knew about Space Boy was that his name is Space Boy,
right? And
he has a gorilla body apparently,
right. And he's like strong and can fly or something.
Well, I assume he had one of those flight belts that they all had.
Yeah.
And he didn't always have the gorilla body,
right?
But we don't know why he has the gorilla body,
right? That was one of those things where it's like, when I first saw him, I'm like, oh, he has a gorilla body.
We find out.
Well, right, we felt that, but I'm saying, when you first see him in that.
When do we find out?
In
it's the issue where they talk about he went to space,
right?
And then something went wrong, and so the professor did experimental surgery to like put his head on a gorilla body.
I must have totally missed that.
I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember what issue that's in.
Was that maybe in one of the shorts?
No,
it's like it's not a voiceover. It's a voiceover.
A narration box.
I think it's a narration thing, because it's like there's a panel where it's like it shows him like the first boy in space, and there's like a splash, and he's kind of like on the moon or whatever, and then is it around the time where Five grabs the monocle?
In the very first panel that you meet Space Boy, and there's 2 newspaper articles on the wall, one of which says like experimental surgery or whatever, and that's the first glimpse you get at it.
Mars mission failure.
Yeah, but there is actually a panel of the professor doing surgery on Space Boy to put his head on a body. And it's definitely not in the shorts, because I didn't read those today, but I remember reading it today. So
it's somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of stuff that he does that I think people like Ellis and Mignola, and actually to the greater extent a lot of superhero writers will do, where they'll throw out a little nugget of information that you're like, ooh, I wonder what that's all about. Unfortunately, the book doesn't last for long enough for you to figure anything out, and this came out quite a while ago, and I have not heard any like real talk about it coming back.
There's some sort of Twitter
there's like
situation going back and forth that was saying that he wanted to back away from the comic to work on music for a while.
Right.
And then I think there was something said to the effect of like, I think there was some disappointment over like Killjoy or something like that. And talked about putting something out in 2012. 2012 came and went.
Yeah.
And then some other mention in, I think, 14. I was reading about this.
Yeah, it seems to be like something he likes doing, but he doesn't really have like a lot of time to devote to it.
Yeah.
And so, and obviously he's making like mad cash hand over fist being a musician, so I mean, the drive for a lot of comic book artists to put out content is to feed their families, and so he doesn't have to do that. This is just kind of something fun he gets to do every once in a while. I was gonna say something about it just they don't come to fruition. So like number 6, who's not really in the book at all, you see him fight the Eiffel Tower with the tentacles coming out of his stomach, and then there's a statue of him. And Space Boy says to Rumor, like, it's not your fault what happened to, what's his name?
The Horror.
Yeah, and it never really comes up, and I wonder if he had ideas about what he was going to do with that, or if he was, like, leaving himself narrative devices to jump off of later.
Something that kind of have 2 points about what you guys have been talking about. First one's about, like, things that he didn't address, and I was reading a review, and somebody was saying that it reads a lot like a 1930s serialized pulp fiction novel. You don't get all the information, and it's not really relevant because you don't really need to know why the horror died for the story.
Right.
You just know that he's dead.
Yeah.
And so that's why he's not in it. And I think it kind of gives a interesting air to the book when you read it in that way, as this is just kind of a pulp fiction sort of like they're heroes, like kicking the shit out of things. This is their lives. But they have a lot more characterization than you would normally get in some pulp fiction novels, like a lot more deeper themes. Another thing is, like, as far as the absurdity of a lot of what happens, in many ways, I was reminded of God Hates Astronauts.
Yeah.
And all the things I absolutely hated about God Hates Astronauts, because I hated that comic. It's terrible. And I feel...
Good,
no. And I felt like...
It was just too highbrow for you, because you just didn't get it.
Obviously. No, I felt like all the points where God Hates Astronauts really failed as far as humor goes, or like absurdity levels or whatever, this comic actually succeeded in. And there are definitely flaws in this comic, but I felt like putting Space Boy's head on the body of a chimp, like, it works, and you just kind of accept it because it's like, this totally works. This is a thing that happens. Like, you have chimps that are going around,
they talk
all the time. Like, yeah, exactly.
It's just a setting element.
Yeah, exactly. And you have a lot of other, like, just absurd things. Yeah, like this wrestler guy, he totally squashed a giant squid in a wrestling match, and then all these children were born. That just happened. You know, and it's cool because it just kind of throws you into this world of, like, this is not our universe. This is not something where it's like, oh, but this one thing kind of went weird in our day-to-day lives. It's like, no, this is something totally different. And I liked it for that.
I was actually going to make the exact same comment, except instead of God Hates Astronauts, I was going to say Mystery Society.
Rude.
I feel like this book succeeded for me in ways that Mystery Society did not.
Well, they're really different animals, I think, because Mystery Society is such a character study about these very odd people in a world that seemed more normal, where this book to me is like everything is crazy. Like, not... I mean, like, this is a world in which, like, 30 years ago, they fought the Eiffel Tower, and then it launched into space. But the world, like, keeps trucking on, and there's, like, it's like, it has become the status quo that weird shit happens. In that way, it reminds me so much of Hellboy and BPRD. It seems a lot less, like, catastrophic than it does in BPRD. When giant, towering... penis head monsters show up in BPRD spewing like chemical, it's like the end of the world is happening, like it's all over. But in this, it just kind of felt like, yeah, this is something we have to deal with. It felt a little Venture Bros, a little like...
Have any of you guys ever read The Intimates by Joe Casey?
No.
He had a bunch of different people write on it. It was a Wildstorm series. It was kind of one of my secret loves for a while, but basically, and it never really kind of took off, I think, the way Joe Casey wanted to, but it was a 12-issue series that basically was about a group of kids going to a superpowered high school, and it was super tongue-in-cheek and super, like, rooted in its time, but one of its big things was that, like, you know how, like, there's the blurbs, like, at the end of the first issue, I think, of Apocalypse Suite, it's like, I can't remember what the paragraph is, but it's like... There's like 13 pages to the thing, and
there's 130 pages left. There's 72. Whatever
and none of these things matter. Yeah. So one of the big things about The Intimates was that Casey, who had written Deadpool at that point, had tons of extraneous crap happening, where it was like weird narration boxes that were explaining objects in the background, like weird color commentary, like you were looking at you were getting like a radio announcer or a pop television person, like overlaying info, and that was like part of its charm.
Matt Kent does that a lot.
Yeah, and so at the time it was really kind of like, it kind of tickled me, and that's kind of what I felt was happening here a little bit, especially in Apocalypse Suite, less in Dallas, where it was kind of like, here's all the crazy meta tongue-in-cheek jokes that we're going to make about the universe to kind of help and I think that the intention is to frame the emotional baseline of the thing, so that you are like, he like atomic elbowed a giant galactic octopus, that's cool, right?
Yeah,
like hey, tongue firmly planted in cheek. The thing for me though, and that Kaylee said, is that it's true that Pulp used to just kind of throw things out there and you were just kind of like, yep, that's the way it is. And in particular, a series that I think does this really well, and we've never really talked about it on the show, we've always kind of hedged around it, is Atomic Robo. There is tons of shit in that book where it's just like, yep, that's a thing, including the main character. Like, it doesn't go into a lot, at least not at first, like where Atomic Robo came from. And I feel like the challenge here is that Way was trying to have his cake and eat it too, and doing like that kind of pulp, like, hey, it's a giant squid and a guy, and then that led to people being born, but also then being like, let me put visual elements in the background to hint that there is more. Let me have expository dialogue. Like in a kind of a classic pulp thing, it seems to me that if horror was dead, horror would be dead. There might be some visual representation of him in some sense, but you wouldn't literally have two characters talking about it in front of the statue. That's a characterization element, story element that's intended, in my opinion, to make you go, huh, I wonder what happened to the horror.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas it's not just like, oh, I accept that the horror died because he's there and he's dead.
But I think it's some of both, because I think it's world building in that, like, you feel like you've entered into maybe like the second or third chapter in a larger story, and it helps the like whole
some
arc.
motivations of the characters. And,
Yeah.
Well, and that's the
and
advantage.
what points of contention they might have between each other.
Yeah, and it lets you get to those intense character moments faster, because we didn't have to have the 15 issues in which they explained like the horror's rise and like what he does and how he dies. You just get to have that moment at the graveside where it's like, it wasn't your fault, and then like something
all you need
crazy
to know is
happens.
the connection to understand what the other characters are doing later on. Then, so
the element of that I'm kind of more interested in is the professor, and like they very explicitly tell you at the very beginning, he's a space alien.
Yeah, he's an alien,
and he did like science experiments to make chimps sentient and talk. Right. And like we see, like in addition to the doctor chimp that they have, there's a detective chimp, there's a soldier chimp. Like we see these chimps all over the place. They're just part of society at this point. Well, who the fuck is the professor, and why was he so obsessed with monkey experiments, and what was like there were all these things that were just kind of thrown out there.
People are monkeys.
Yeah, it's like what's the deal with that? Like what's going on here?
But I guess that's the issue for me, is that depending on where you put those things, they have a different level of provocation to you as a story beat. Like the reason Pulp did a lot of those things is because then they're interchangeable. It doesn't matter which of the 87 Doc Savage books you read, because all of them refer to that one time in Zimbabwe, and it's just kind of like, oh yeah, Zimbabwe. Right. Yeah, but you could pick it up in book 2, 10, 15, or 25, and it doesn't really matter. With this, I feel like when you start your comic being like, and then there was the professor, he was an alien, and you're like,
well, I think
like it wasn't a throwaway.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too is like, she's like in high school, huge My Chemical Romance fan. I'm still a pretty big My Chemical Romance fan.
Marching in the Black Parade.
Yeah,
that's you.
That's me. But if you look at his videos, there's a lot of like absurd humor in like these really dark scenes, and like one of my favorite music videos is Helena, where they're singing around this casket and they all start dancing, and he's like up at the pulpit and he's like screaming, singing, yelling. There's umbrellas waving, and then the corpse gets up and she does this beautiful ballet number, and it's just like, no, you just roll with it. Like, this is just a thing that happens. Like, don't worry about it. Corpses totally get up and they do their last dance, and then they fall back down, and then we put them in the hearse and we bury them, because that's what happens.
It's absurd to get kind of gathered together and be like, wow, this person's so totally dead. You guys realize that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think that's kind of the thing there.
Right, yeah. And there's just
it's
like
absurd and regular.
He kind of takes a lot of these like scenes, and a lot of his, because it's kind of it's an emo band, so it's a lot, it's darker, it has a lot of like death and obsession with death, but there's like, the Black Parade is a whole album about a cancer patient who's dying and who's going to like join the souls of the dead in a black parade, and it's like, you could make that really, really dark, but a lot of times the videos are really funny.
Comedic, for sure.
Yeah. And they have a lot of this sort of, like, they have a lot of bright colors or, like, really stark contrasts. They have a lot of, like, whites in the video. It's just, like, I felt like a lot of his themes and, like, motifs and stuff from his videos and from his music translated over to the comic. So I was willing to
kind of accept this absurdity that he had built, because it was something that he's always done.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that I don't feel like absurdity in of itself is a problem, especially like in the company of the authors that I was mentioning specifically. It's like all of those guys do that kind of stuff. Like by the time Devil Dinosaur shows up in a smoking jacket with a cigarette and a martini glass, you've gotten about as absurd can get in the Marvel universe, especially for something that's supposedly in continuity. Like, or at least it was before.
Oh, it is now entirely.
Oh yeah, okay, there we go.
Thank you, Al Ewing.
Yeah. So like that, but I think that with music, which I think is clearly Way's stronger suit, or at least the craft that he's given a lot more interest to, for whatever reason, like I guess what I'm just trying to say is that I'm not disputing that his absurdity has a place or is not appropriate. It's just that there's something about its deployment here that shows either a level of amateurism, or it doesn't quite gel for me, or it's missing some kind of critical element that I think he has peers who are stronger at it. Now, that's not to say that if Way was writing more, like I said, I like Dallas more. There were some things in Dallas that I found both disturbing and hilarious, and just felt more invested in because of the way it was paced. And so I have a certain level of confidence that if Way kept working with these characters as a laborer, that maybe he would have more and more. And of course, how much of this has to do also with he drew it initially, right? And that, from what I understand, Apocalypse Suite he drew initially, and then Ba came in and redid it. So I don't know if the case is for Dallas that Ba actually then did a lot of the visual legwork himself and employed his skill set more so than he would have in Apocalypse Suite. Like, those are some of the things that I'm kind of curious about, because maybe that was just the difference, was that when Ba was untethered from having to do exactly what Way had done, then he was able to be like, oh, well, this would be a better way to frame it, versus like, oh, well, this is how you drew it, let me try to do that a little bit better. I don't know.
And I don't know that it's 100% fair to take this and hold it up next to things by like Warren Ellis and Mike Mignola, who are like masters of their craft. Like, I think this is very much a freshman effort.
Well, and I think that's what's so cool about Dallas to me is, while I really like Apocalypse Suite, Dallas like kind of blows my mind in a lot of ways, because there's so much fucking cool shit going on all the time that I'm like, this is the second comic this guy's ever written. Like, if this were not Gerard Way and he had to continue writing comics to feed his family instead of just, turning back to the music and getting paid boatloads of money, he would have been an amazing comic book writer.
Yeah.
Like, I know that. Like, I can say that without a doubt, that if Dallas is your second attempt at a comic ever, like, you're gonna get better. I know that. I know that the seeds of information that he dropped in there is enough that he has some talent to world build and also make me care about characters in a way that I know I would be interested in other stories he's written. I don't know. I mean,
I definitely feel like Dallas did a lot for sort of going back and covering potholes that the first trade kind of left.
Suite.
Apocalypse Suite, thank you. I kept wanting to say Apocalypse Now, and I know that's not that.
Where was Brandon?
Apocalypse Suite had a lot of things that you don't really realize are missing, or maybe you do, but you're willing to forgive it. And then you realize when you're reading Dallas that you're like, oh, wow, that actually really answers a lot. And it was nice. And I think that if he had the chance or wanted to do a third or a fourth trade, it would be really strong.
And I think that even though a lot of the characters seem more like side characters in Dallas than they did in the original Apocalypse Suite, they got more time and they got better moments, I feel like. I think Seance got some amazing moments in Dallas that he didn't get in Apocalypse Suite.
Something just kind of clicked for me, and I think another thing that this was influenced by that I didn't realize is Scud the Disposable Assassin, particularly with Dallas. I think that there is
the temporal guys.
Yeah, well, the temporal guys and the whole thing where he's like this assassin for time, and people are like, well, you have to go kill this guy. Like, it's very, I feel like there's a lot due to Scud the Disposable Assassin here.
Absolutely.
That just clicked for me. Like, I've been rolling it around in my head trying to think of like what
also,
this reminds me of.
There's a little bit of like kind of it feels like like perversions of other pop culture characters in there, like Sam and Max as assassins, sort of.
Yes,
kind of.
1,000 times. Yes.
Yeah, like I love that. Those kind of playing with pop culture tropes or these pop culture things that we kind of recognize, I think is awesome. I love that.
I also wanted to talk more about Gabriel Ba's artwork because I actually really liked the art in this, especially the colors.
Yeah, well, the colors of Dave Stewart, the best in the world.
Yeah. But specifically, like I was looking at this thing throughout the entire thing, and I'm like, "This reminds me of something. This seems so familiar. What is this like?"
Doom Patrol.
A bit, yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot owed to Doom Patrol here, but visually, does anybody remember a cartoon that was on Saturday morning in the 90s called Cyber 6?
Yes.
Nope.
Very similar. I think there's a lot of references to that here, and it was originally in, I think, Italian, or it was like written by a South American and published in Italy, and then adapted into a cartoon that like aired internationally.
Yeah, they're Brazilian, right? Gabriel Ba
is,
and Fabio Moon.
Yeah, they're like twins or something.
But I can't remember the name of it, but in Cyber 6 there's this kid that looks very similar to number 5.
Argentine comics.
Yes.
Cool.
And so I have to imagine that Gabriel Ba was thinking about that and the way that looked in doing this.
There's also definitely manga influence in this too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Gabriel Ba, I think, is like talked about which mangas influenced him. I think Akira was one, so because that kind of like influenced everybody. Which we'll definitely talk about on the long run.
Yeah, which you should totally check out our long run episode when it airs.
Stealth announcement.
Yeah,
next long run episode coming up in 3-ish weeks.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. And it's Akira, so watch the movie, read the film. Watch the movie, read the film.
Yep, that's
watch the movie, read the
both?
book, read the film too, and
But anyway, like I really, as much as the writing didn't quite click for me, the art was phenomenally good. And I think I talked about this a little bit when we were discussing, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but the
Daytripper?
Yes, Daytripper.
Yeah.
Like, I love the artwork on that.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
I think that beautiful. Gabriel Ba is underappreciated in the industry.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit before we got here, Kaylee and I, a little bit about the art.
Isn't so.
Yeah. I will not go. Anyway, we were talking about the art a little bit in this, is that, especially because when we were talking about Kindly Ones, I think some of the same points were coming up in that. This style of illustration is something that I think of as art for mood. That the art is geared toward kind of making you feel with panels, but the character designs in this style I don't think lend themselves very well to expressive reaction panels or things like that. I like kind of the big moments, I guess, where you have like a splash or something like that. It has a lot of impact, where I think the character designs sometimes suffer from some same face, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so what I find interesting about actually looking at the book is, although the colors are beautiful and the style is beautiful and everything like that, I think that there is a degree to where you depend a lot more on what you're told that things should, or someone should be feeling.
Yeah.
And there's this ping pong that I kind of feel looking at the art between action and reaction that I don't feel like the reactions catch the ball too well.
Yeah, there's some characters I feel like I never really get to draw. Like, I don't really ever get a sense of what they're thinking. Rumor is one, because she's kind of like just like very blank,
like bah face,
and the white violin in the second volume, is just like over exaggerated. How
she just has crazy face.
She's got crazy face.
They're drawn for character. I mean, their character design wise, they're very strong. But as far as actually communicating feelings through the story as characters, as individuals, I think that's definitely a weakness of the book. Although it's great to look through these character designs, it's great to kind of look at what they've come up with.
And
it does make it difficult to actually connect, I think, in a lot of ways with what's being felt. So I think you depend a lot more, again, on same thing with the kindly ones. These really like negative kind of spaces, we're looking at some of these particular panels where the light and shadow on it is communicating a lot better than the actual words, I think. But I think there's a better sense of push-pull between the writing and the action than there is the writing for the reaction. I guess. You feel like you're pulled by the nose when it comes to reaction.
I feel like, too, as the character designs move further away from the superhero, like X-Men team outfits that they wear in the first volume, into just like kind of their natural clothes and different appearance in the second volume. Like when Space Boy's got the giant beard, and he's fat and wears the cape, I'm like, oh, okay, like I start to feel a little bit more about what that character's like, because he's not wearing a costume.
Yeah, and like Kraken's like Vietnam vet. Like,
and fucking, and the Seance has got the Hawaiian shirt on, and like this is a guy that channels dead people, but like he chooses to be happy, and I feel like his emotions came across really well. And I think his moments with the like seeing the afterlife and the horseman cowboy,
that whole thing was great.
I love that.
Even the lead up to it when it's Cha-Cha, right? And who's the other guy?
Oh god, it's in the very first page of volume 2. There's like an ad for their show.
That's right.
It's like the Cha-Cha and
something with a P, Pokey.
I don't remember.
But when he's got the like, what is it, like greenish yellow sneakers on, he's like, I will not die in these shoes. Like that whole thing, like that was the stuff that I feel like was missing from Apocalypse Suite, was those little beats to make those people feel more like Seance is like, I can do these things, and you know, like this is my situation, but fuck you, take me out of these shoes.
Well, it's also because his powers don't work when he's wearing shoes.
Right. No, I know that, but there's something specific about those shoes. That
I liked that because it was so random. It's like my powers don't work when I wear shoes. They just don't.
They work a little bit. He was able to like reach through the TV to Space Boy, and like,
we did have a couple of questions from Brandon Hill that he emailed to us that I think would be a good time to delve into those, because we're talking about the Seance. One of them was, what do you think of the Seance being the jokey type, and the fact that he's the character who saves the world in the first volume when his more masculine brothers, who are being distracted by ladies, fail?
I have an answer for that.
Yeah,
please.
It's a part of the emo culture. It's a part of like that sort of teenage, you're the scrawny boy, you don't fit in with the patriarchy yet, and you're considered too feminine, but you have like these sort of dark impulses, and like, you know, like you're
loser fantasy.
Yeah, you're a loser
fantasy.
You're too girly for the jocks, but you're like, you know.
And so it's very much so a loser fantasy. I like that. That's perfect. And just kind of this reaffirmation of like, no, you have value. Like, and some of it's a little bit like, oh, those dumb jocks are so easily distracted. But I think a lot of it is kind of that, like, no, you as a person have value. Like Gerard Way does a lot of affirmation of fans. He does a lot of like positive outlook. He's always putting things up like, oh, you know, just keep trucking. Now I'm gonna sing this song about killing yourself. You know, and it's funny. Like it's kind of this this attitude that surrounds that culture.
But there's a comedy to those feelings, which makes it kind of okay for him to do the affirmation and then like sing a song about killing yourself, is because you have to kind of make it this this jokey kind of thing. You know, and I think, again, like looking at his book, that becomes pretty apparent that when you have dire situations and what should be severe peril, there's still a whole lot of we're fucked. But okay, let's go. You know, kind of thing.
And it's distinguishing between a call to action and a act of catharsis.
Yeah.
You're letting those feelings out so you don't have to feel them.
And I think that scene's interesting too, because while Seance does distract the white violin long enough for her like orchestra of the damned or whatever they're called to like get beat up, really 5 pulling the trigger ends the situation like very abruptly, and they're all kind of like, what the fuck did you just do? Like, you don't get to make those kind of calls. And I feel like that was a moment that we really appreciated in stuff like was that Uncanny X-Force with Phantom X, and I feel like although it could have had legs like that, it didn't get the room to breathe or the ramifications that it has in Uncanny X-Force, because very neatly, like in the next few panels, they're like, oh, but she lived.
Yeah.
Which I found to be really odd. And I like the joke later on that it's like, apparently getting shot in the head does nothing to anyone in this family. Because like Seance lives through a headshot too.
I think that really is the biggest thing with this work for me, is that it's got all the pieces there. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't quite know how to put them all together so they work seamlessly. You know what I mean? And
I think that a lot of that is like the growing pains of becoming a comic book writer.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Like figuring out how to play with the toys of the medium and like making it work properly. But I think it's also, there's something to be said about the way the story is told and who the characters are, that there aren't as dire consequences as there are in books like Uncanny X-Force. Like, it's not meant to be that dark.
Right.
Well, although you get these moments of darkness with like, what is it, Pogo? The chimpanzee, like his head exploding and stuff, and you're like, what the like, where did that come from? Like, you have these very moments of intense darkness, followed up by like kind of weirdly lighthearted moments, like watching Space Boy just fall apart and watch TV and get huge and eat cookies, and like Seance
got super swole.
Yeah, he didn't get swole. That's not what that is.
He got the opposite of swole.
He got super chunky.
Yeah. And, you know, and with those pieces that aren't quite pulled together yet, I was just looking at this because it was bothering me. I knew I had read something about it. I guess as recently as last month, he tweeted about actively writing a continuation to the series.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
I mean, Unhaunted Hotel or something like that?
Yeah. It was for, Hotel Oblivion. So...
Yeah. There's a lot of pieces still there to play with, I think, for sure.
Well, yeah, he certainly set the groundwork for a pretty... I mean, he could play in this universe.
You are nowhere near a microphone.
I know, sorry. Oh. He could play in this universe for a long time.
I think there's a lot of cases, though, when, especially if you're new to making comics, even if you're... Well, maybe even especially if you're a comic fan, you know all the things you like, and it's Chex Mix.
Yeah.
Kind of thing where you're just like, oh my god, I love pretzels. Holy shit, I love rye chips. Oh my god, let's throw them all together. And you know you like all those parts, but you don't know how to make it all kind of get together. And it's good to have an interest in those various flavors from what you've read in comics or, again, your own influences that you know you love. But it's really hard to trim the fat in the beginning for things like that. And so I think sometimes a lot of people who are new to creating something like that like to throw a lot of things at the wall to see what sticks, or fire a lot of darts at
you're so
at the target to see what grouping sticks the best.
You're so excited about all these ideas that you have that you want to use them all at once.
And I can't fault enthusiasm in a new creator. If anything, I would rather have a person who has lots of intriguing ideas than somebody who's so tied down to one or two that they're unwilling to deviate and let themselves grow and let the story grow.
And I think there's definitely a place for both, because I love the like unwavering dedication that like Kirkman has to like telling a very specific superhero story, a very specific story about zombies, in which like people tried to get him to change those ideas. He was like, nope, this is the story that I want to I'm telling exactly this. But I also wonder how much of this, and I love the other side of it, where it's just like all the stuff all the time. Like that's why I love stuff like The Auteur and God Hates Astronauts. In this to the same extent is it's just like put all of the ideas out there. I want to see everything you've got. I want to see all the cards on the table, and you can come back and sort through them later, because it's just exciting to see that kind of novelty. But I also wonder how much of this is he wasn't sure how long he was going to be able to dedicate himself to a project like this, and it was just like, quick, get all of the ideas about this into these 12 issues, where in reality, if someone was like, I'm dedicated to the craft of comics, it is my first and only passion, they may have tried to make this into like 30, 40 issues, because they're like, well, I can't waste all my good ideas at the beginning, but like he didn't have that holding him back.
And Way seems like a feedback kind of guy anyway, because, I mean, let's face it, he has the added advantage as well of having a a pre-existing audience. And so that's something too that I think can be considered for him getting into the comics writing thing, is that you have a captive audience already of people who are interested in what work you produce. So why not use that? Why not, just like we were talking about figures, why not play test a little bit? Why not be like, hey, you like these things too, but yeah,
that testing the market that he can do of just like, I'm going to put something out there, and if it doesn't work, like, I'm not financially ruined by that, and I get a lot of feedback because a lot of people are going to at least pick it up and check it out.
Yeah, so I mean, he doesn't have to... He doesn't have the disadvantage of that initial struggle to find an audience.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is massively important in deciding why somebody writes what they write.
Yeah.
A lot of comic book writers that are already pre-established as popular or well-loved, they already know what their audience likes from their previous work if they've followed around before. So if you don't have to be afraid of how too many things are perceived by the people who already like you, I think you can afford to spitball a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of freeing. So,
and that would definitely be good for somebody who's brand new to something like that. That's a lot of creative freedom for an already creative person.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's a little bit similar to when novelists come over to write comics.
Yes.
Is like, they kind of have already tested the waters on like what their fans are going to be into anyway. So it's less of a jump for them than someone who's like very first starting out, but...
And even more so in Gerard Way's case is a lot of people who would have liked his work with his band would already be the kind of people that may already like comics and things like that. So, I mean, that's just another in column A for him there.
Yeah.
So most of the people interested would probably already know what's in his wheelhouse a little bit and kind of be rolling with what he's putting out there.
Yeah, it was interesting for me coming in reading this the first time I read it, because I had like no exposure to My Chemical Romance or anything like that, and I read it and I was like, man, this is a lot of the stuff I love. I wonder what his music's like. And then listen to that and be like, there's nothing here for me. And not that his music is bad, it's just like it's not for me.
Yeah. Many of my friends were fans, and it was kind of a funny thing how many people I've had for years telling me, like, you should be reading this. This is a thing that you would love. And I did have that active bucking resistance against it just because of how much he was discussed among my friends. I was just like, fuck this guy and fuck your shit. I'm not reading his goddamn comics. I just want to read a fucking comic. I don't want any part of my life touched by this asshole. And it was just kind of funny, like how reactionary I was, I guess, to it initially.
Yeah.
Even when I could see from what was being shown to me by friends that I would have some interest in, like, the aesthetic and things like that, I was actively trying not to find something to like.
And that's why when I tell people about the book, I'm always like, look, this guy was an intern at DC Comics. Like, he's been a comics fan his whole life. This isn't like Gene Simmons' Dominatrix. Like, I want people to like...
What haven't I conquered?
Yeah, like
kind of attitude.
I want to get that out of people's minds and go into it as like, this is the first comic this guy's written. Check it out. See what you think. Because when you go in with preconceived notions like that, I think it keeps some people away as much as it draws his own fans to it. So
yeah.
I think he definitely had some resistance with some people, and maybe that's why he didn't stick around in the comic book industry. So unfortunately, I guess that's a lesson we could learn about comics.
I mean, he won an Eisner for the Apocalypse Suite, so...
I mean, but how? I mean, the critical response was great,
right? But I mean,
how
if
was
you
he
don't have a
treated in the industry, though, like how did
as far as I
Dark
know,
But
he
he
did
is
fine.
sticking around, though. That's kind of the thing. Is he's still
he
actively
keeps kinda
writing.
keep coming
He's just
back.
got other shit to do.
He did Killjoys, and he's done some other
which
stuff.
apparently
One of
that wasn't
the-
as super great received.
It's fun, though.
One of the biggest things was that he wasn't hawking this comic at his concerts and stuff. Not a whole lot of his fans actually knew that he was writing a comic unless they were interested in the comics industry and were like on the My Chemical Romance message boards, and somebody was like, did you know that, like,
which I totally am.
Yeah, obviously everybody is. It's the best place to be on the internet. It was just like fans just being like, hey, did you know that this guy that we really like is like writing a comic right now? And
I honestly feel like that's the best way to handle it.
Yeah.
Like, I personally think that the best way that medium artists can handle their stuff is kind of be like kind of quiet about it on the QT. Like, even Greg Rucka, for someone who actually literally brought his comics into his books, like, if you ever see like what he says about his like Queen and Country books, he's like, oh yeah, it's related to the series that I did, but he's not like, and you should read all of them because like he'll be like, it's kind of important, like that's a thing. Like there are, you know, even writers who jump genres and stuff, I think are most successful when they
Yeah.
JK had to go under a different
Robert
name
Gilbreth.
because that's with a lot of people switching mediums or switching just delivery, I guess there is of course the initial fear too that like, do people, Stephen King of course with Bachman is, do people buy my books because they buy Stephen King, or do they actually like my writing?
Right.
And, you know, I'm going to be Richard Bachman for a while. And he was so upset when somebody went, wait a minute, this asshole's the same asshole who wrote The Shining. And he's like, shit, now I can't do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Because you know that it's Stephen King.
Right.
And so that's a factor. I mean, I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Well, especially if you, with JK too, like going to write a very specific genre of genre fiction with like private detective novels, the American style private detective novels set in the UK.
Even Lemony Snicket, though. I'm telling you that, like he has his Daniel Handler books for adults because he wants to write incest operas, and then he also wants to write stories about orphans.
But it was interesting for her too because like she was not like she was critically acclaimed as a crime writer before people knew that it was her, and that was important to her. I feel
and
like,
that's a big deal as a creative person. You know,
it's like, am I nailing this genre, or am I,
or is
just
it just
too famous already?
Slavish affection?
Right. Yeah.
So
sorry, discussions of J.K. Rowling traumatize me right now because my wife bought The Casual Vacancy for me.
Oh my god, it's so good.
It's so good, but I ended it. I just like closed the book, and I'm just like, I'm gonna go like throw myself off of a
her
bridge.
Mystery book.
It's
like it's about young
weird.
Adults, but it's not really for
it's like a
young
weird
adults.
mystery / slice of life. Like, like it kind of merges a couple of genres,
like Cuckoo Calling and whatnot.
I haven't read it yet, and I found it at Goodwill, and I was so excited because I was like, oh, I'll finally pick it up. I'll finally read it. I've been meaning to for years. And they wanted to charge $20 for it.
At the Goodwill?
At Goodwill. I was just like, that's not, no.
That's not how this works.
That's not how any of this works.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was, if you go to Amazon, you can get it for like $7.
That's so
totally worth it. It's really good.
It is really
I just read both of the Galbraith books like back to back, and I had that fun experience where you like finish one because it's a series. I finished one and I was like, man, I sure hope there's going to be more in this series. I wonder when the next book comes out. It's already out. I can read it now.
Surprise,
and then I finished the second one and I was like, maybe the third one's out, and I was like, no,
this asshole over here gave me the first in the Powder Mage books, and the next one wasn't going to come out for like a year, and I was super butthurt because I finished the first one. I'm like, all right, I'm ready for the next one. Wait, this is a new series? That's not fair.
Hey,
you can't give me books when they're contemporary.
The first trilogy's done now.
You were very nice. You waited to give me Game of Thrones until there were already 3 books out. Otherwise, I would have gone insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did have another question from Brandon that I wanted to...
One question per show, man. Sorry, Brandon.
Also, I did want to note about that because they often make the reference that Seance might be gay because he's very, like, you know, kind of lithe and effeminate. And then you find out in Dallas that that's, like, not the case or not quite, you know, you're unsure about that character even more than you were before.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Every emo is called gay.
This is when...
Well, that's his brothers are like, I thought you were, and he's like, you thought I was what? And then the elevator doors close, right?
No, that's totally a thing, though. That's just like the most frequent thing back when they used to. I remember in high school there was those social media things like bash an emo day or things like that. You know, where there was a lot of this like really, you know, really reactionary attitudes toward the more effeminate or emotional aesthetic, you know.
Well,
that they'd
emotions
have
are for girls. I mean,
which is why it's important
funny
to get
again,
really
draw
angry
it in
about
for
them.
your people.
You know, to feel emotionally discomforted by the people who are emotional is the sign of a true man.
Absolutely.
It's my
Your
favorite.
eyes are leaking and it scares me. Yeah,
it's my favorite line in Bob's Burgers is when Tina's like, they're like, it's right in the lady parts, and they're like, which are the lady parts? And Tina's like, the vagina and the heart. That's like my favorite line. I love that show so much. All right, next question.
So Brandon's question is, what is your opinion on the rumor's power being lying, considering that she's the only female hero on the team and the only other female family member being a villain?
Well, she's not. That's not her power.
Yeah, the whole thing is that one weird thing happens because she's lying, and normally she's not. Right?
It's like the power of persuasion. She's like, I heard a rumor that your head exploded, and then he blew up. Like, she's the guy from Surf Ninjas.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reference that no one will get. Yeah. She's the guy from Surf Ninjas who says the thing, and then it happens. Like, and then people will cut her off. Like, it's not that she's lying; it's that she has the power to make people do whatever they want.
Well, she has gossip powers.
I think.
Yeah,
I think
that's a framing.
I think that there is also something to the idea that, like, she's the one who gets, like, really badly injured. Like, the Kraken gets, like, stabbed and stuff, and he's still like,
the horror.
grr. I mean, the horror dies off page.
Head blown off.
Yeah.
And
Pogo explodes.
Yeah, Pogo explodes, and
the dad dies.
Violin girl, whose name I'm totally blanking on, which is
she gets injured, but she also recovers better than any of the rest of them do.
And then,
like, Space Boy loses his body. He doesn't grow back. Like, he gets a gorilla body, but she gets her throat cut,
right?
And then her vocal cords heal.
Yeah, and then she got better.
Well, no, they don't heal. She gets them repaired.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah. And there's a price that has to be paid for that.
Well, but that's a lot of other characters.
There were a lot of prices that would have paid to that because they were going to kill her brother, and then they were also going to kill her other brother. Okay. So, I mean, they held her ransom, but I think that of a lot of the people in the book, she kind of got off the lightest because the White Violin is insane crazy.
Right.
The professor's dead. Pogo's dead. Seance got shot, got better.
Thanks to John Wayne. Yeah. Basically.
Which I love those panels, by the way, because they're just like, there's absence of color except for Seance. They look so cool. And Space Boy loses his body. The horror dies. Like, if I had to pick which one I would want to be at the end of the story, it's Rumor. But she has the unfortunate side effect of, like, a lot of the reason why she did that was to save Space Boy. And when she tells him that, like, I killed the president to save you, he's like, well, my life is not worth the life of other people. Like, he's very dismissive of the fact that she did that. What they also don't realize is that by killing Kennedy, that meant that their dad couldn't steal nukes from them, and then Cha-Cha and what's his name couldn't blow up the whole planet. So like, there are other side effects to that, but I guess I do feel like it is a common trope with female characters to have some kind of skill involved with, like, lying or saying words, or like characters like Jean Grey and Emma Frost.
Manipulation.
It's like, does Scott Summers actually love either one of them, or did they make him love them? Like, that comes up in X-Men comics and stuff.
And another common thing with female superheroes in particular is that they're very hands-off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're very much so. They float in the background and say things or do things and
heal shit.
Yeah.
Except for
glowing
Rogue,
orbs of
except for Rogue, Storm, and Carol Danvers.
Mohawk Storm.
Well, Rogue and Carol Danvers have the same powers.
I know. Punch stuff real hard. It's
actually, they don't have the same powers. Rogue has other powers in addition to hers.
Fake geek.
No shit. Where's your geek card? I now need to give you a 37-point test to verify your geek credentials.
Name every Green Lantern. Go.
All of them.
There are 7,600 of those.
I said go.
There's only one, and it's
this
the
is
outlaw
gonna be a
Hal
real
Jordan,
long
Andrew.
recording.
But no, Rogue, like, her flight and invulnerability and strength, came from Carol Danvers. I'm not sure that everybody in the room knows that.
That's like
The big question is why we're still arguing about it, I suppose.
Maybe one of our listeners didn't know that.
And no one else does. You're right, though, Kaylee.
Not anymore. Not since the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm not... Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, Kaylee's right. Like, a lot of times, the female character is, like, a background player in the, like, combat / superhero-dom. Like, get the civilians to safety while we do all the hard work.
Yeah.
Save a baby.
And I feel
Save
like...
two babies.
but how funny was it, though, when they're like, hey, you get all these civilians out of here. We're going to go fight the Eiffel Tower. And she's like, hey, I heard a rumor that they're giving away free ice cream and paintings.
Yeah.
Boom.
Like, all everybody goes running.
Well, and then there was another... And then the thing with the Lincoln Memorial, she's like, I heard a rumor that you were assassinated. And then they were like, oh, we weren't expecting a 5-foot tall tall or a 5-story tall John Wilkes Booth to show up, but I guess that gets the job done.
Yeah,
like I feel like there's lots of examples of her A, being in the fray, and B, I don't think this is Brandon's intention, although I think he's asking for this purpose. I think it's a kind of a sinister interpretation to be like, oh, the one woman gossips. And I want to point out that the only time that it's ever explicitly told that she lies about her powers is there's a short, the first or second short of Umbrella Academy,
which one it
is the death of Rumor. And basically it's the murder magician, and he's like, I killed Rumor and all this stuff, and it turns out the reason there was another Rumor is because she kept lying about the fact that she was studying at the library, and so when she lied about being at the library, it made another Rumor rock around, and that's who the murder magician killed.
Which is hardly, the most awful, manipulative, sinister,
right? Which felt more like I'm a teenager, I'm lying, not like I'm a woman and I'm
It's
lying.
an innocent thing. It's not a gender-related,
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't see a lot of gender...
I think that Gerard Way is playing with some of those tropes, though, because there's definitely a lot of, like, look out, you can't help us, lady, and then she saves the day. Like, that happens several times.
I really don't think he can be accused of gross sexism.
What about cute sexism?
Sexism is never cute to Toby.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Danger,
Will Robinson. Danger.
Whoa, there goes the pastel filter. Oh my god.
Even in Dallas, you start to like forget that she was a part of the plan. By the time it's like 5 is fighting himself and they're shooting, there's all the like crazy guys with the super future gear on, and then Space Boy shows up and punches again. You're like, wow, this is all so crazy. How are they going to say it? And then it just cuts away to Rumor, who plays the most important part of the plan, who is basically just like, well, I'll just get close to the president and blow his head up. That'll be easy. We'll just do that. And then escapes in the hospital. And I think that there's often the trope of like, while the men are doing stuff they think is important, like they're actually failing to achieve the real goal, which is like 5 fighting with himself. It's Space Boy saving Rumor in the first one. They're like not actually accomplishing the real goal. They're doing what they feel is right, and it's like not actually...
And I think
beneficial.
that is the most significant point.
Yeah, I think that's important.
It's all about context.
Yeah.
Damn you, context.
Yeah.
Fie on you.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything else we have to say about this book? Those were all of the questions.
Cool. I don't have anything else to say. I talked the whole time. You guys have anything else to say?
No, I don't think so.
All I can say is every time someone says Space Boy, I'm thinking about Starboy and the Captain of Outer Space, and I just needed someone to feel what I'm feeling. So I'm saying, just thinking about home movies, you guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
There is definitely a listener out there who just went, yes.
I love you, stranger.
Anyone in particular you think should definitely read this book?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking. I'm asking the room. Would you like? Okay, would you like to answer?
I guess
people who like monkeys.
Yeah,
people who like monkeys. And then I know this never happens to people who are nerds or who have ever liked comic books, but people who maybe were bullied because it's kind of all those characters.
I think there's a lot of different folks who could probably afford to take a chance on this, even if it doesn't seem like something they normally like. I mean, like we were saying, like if you liked Hellboy or Atomic Robo or some of the stuff
X-Men
by Warren Ellis,
and Kit mentioned Doom Patrol, which definitely drew on X-Men.
Doom Patrol for sure was like his influence in this. It's just like it's actually text. He said so. I was just surprised that nobody was like Doom Patrol.
Well, it made me think of X-Men first, but like I should have thought of Doom Patrol because Doom Patrol is like the X-Men parody that like looked at it under a very different filter.
Also monkeys.
Also monkeys. Many.
Yeah.
So many monkeys. Mm-hmm. But I think that there is a certain class of person that would get a lot out of this. Like it's not the most complex work. And I think maybe for somebody younger who's just getting into comics and maybe isn't appreciating more of the ones geared towards younger kids, but who's, 13, 14 years old and is, ready to kind of step up to more mature titles might pick up something like this, where there is violence, but it's not very gruesome violence, except for Dr. Pogo.
Or exploding people,
Well, and I also think that if you
from the inside,
you don't necessarily have to be of the era, but if you are pop culture literate of the early to mid aughts, there's some fun things to pick up in the background and just kind of in the flavor of it.
Like a skull animal in the background. I think any admitted Hot Topic person would be like, oh my god, there's a skull animal.
I'm afraid to ask what a skull animal is.
It's in one of the panels.
Yeah,
it's literally just a
hanging
little
from
animal
the
plush.
Taxi drivers, like...
I was giggling at it.
It's just this little panda that has its skeleton exposed, and it's cute.
Yeah,
they're really cute toys.
They were popular plush toys.
They were popular with cool people, which I wasn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. I think fans of superheroes, and especially, I think this is an amazing gateway comic into indie stuff.
Yeah.
Which is kind of when I read it, as I was reading, like, mostly, like, Batman and Justice League and X-Men, and I was like, I'm going to get back into comics. Like, I want to know what comics are about. And then this was one of the books that, like, started to push me on the path towards feeling like comics, Big C, meant indies as much as, if not more than, the big two. Because it was like, oh, man, there's, like, you can do other shit in comics that is... like these fun bite-sized nuggets of a story where it's like, it's 2 volumes, that's all I have to read. I don't have to read 80 years of X-Men, and I still got a really cool story out of it. And I think that's what I appreciate about this.
I think that is a really good way to phrase it, a transition comic.
Yeah.
I think it's very recommendable too for young aspiring comic creators just to see like what a lot of enthusiasm and energy and passion for what you like as a comic fan can do for you personally, I guess. I think he if nothing else does a fantastic job of showing how much he enjoys the influences he worked with and really taking them in fun directions.
Any aspiring
doesn't take
colorist.
himself too serious, which I think is important.
I like the lightheartedness. It makes it easy to read without feeling like you don't feel like you're missing stuff, but you also don't feel like anyone's like talking down to you either. It's not like simplified for kids. It's like, it's just, there's a good lighthearted nature to a lot of it that makes it enjoyable to read. Any aspiring colorists should read this.
Yes, that too.
But
Cool.
Let's move on to recommendations.
Yes, and as always, we're going to start with our Patreon listener pitch.
Yes.
And this week, our listener pitch is from Brian May.
Yay.
And he has asked us to pitch Nimona by Noelle Stevenson.
Yeah, pitch again. You've pitched this
Yes,
before.
I have pitched this before. This started out as basically her like art school thesis.
Her grad school? No, just art school,
Yeah, just art school. It ran for a couple of years as a webcomic. It's now been collected in a print edition. It was either nominated for or won an Eisner. But it's kind of like a weird mashup of like knights and present day, because there's a kingdom and there's knights, but there's also like robots and cell phones and TVs and like news channels and stuff. And it's about this guy named Sir Blackheart, who's like the designated Black Knight for this kingdom. Who's like the officially recognized bad guy. And one day this girl named Nimona, who has like shape-shifting powers, shows up on his doorstep and is like, "Hey, I'm your new henchwoman." And he's like, I didn't order a henchwoman. But they start working together, and it's kind of about their relationship and adventures. And you find out that Sir Blackheart maybe isn't necessarily the worst guy in the world, and he's up to stuff. And there's a lot of interesting politic things that are going on, and it's a fun read.
Winner of the Slate Cartoon and Studio Prize. It is currently nominated for an Eisner for this year.
There you go.
It's also interesting because this is published by like Scholastic or
I think
somebody.
bought the rights for it.
So it sits apart from the graphic novels in bookstores. It's with like teen fiction.
Weird.
Which I find really refreshing, actually, because there's so many books I wish would not sit in the like 2 feet of shelf room next to all the DC books, but would like get put with like, oh, if you like crime, check out this. If you like horror, check out Lock and Key. If you like that kind of stuff, I want to see more of. So.
Right.
Well, that was the whole push for the term graphic novel to be a thing, because his idea is like, these are novels. Like, this is literature. It just happens to be in a graphic format.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that you need to use the L word, but like they're books and you can read them in the same way that you enjoy other genre fiction.
I don't think that literature should be a bad word.
It is a bad word.
It shouldn't be.
It's a dirty word.
Is it a sexy dirty word?
No, it is when you say it, though. It just sounds dirty.
Literature.
No, I'm done.
All right. So, Chard, What would you like to pitch?
So I'm continuing to pitch Image books, as we know. And one of the ones that I've been really enjoying recently that's been coming out is a fun series called Rumble. So it's called Rumble. That's it. That's all you get to know. It's the first trade is coming out, I believe, next week, and it's called What Color of Darkness?
And by next week, you mean this week? As in the week that this is released?
Yes, the week this is released, I believe it will come out in 2 days after this is released. And so I'm going to read the blurb from the Image website. It's a volume 1, so it's $9.99. They put that in there first. But a scarecrow warrior god walks into a bar and proceeds to drag a modern American city into a 10,000-year-old grudge match, a bizarre new adventure complete with booze hounds, shamans, monster queens, and a football-fetching Hydra, featuring extended sketchbook and other stuff. Collects 1 through 5. So this is 1 through 5 of this. Very first issue opens up, like, this guy shows up at a bar, and he's a scarecrow, but turns out he was, like, this 10,000-year-old warrior god who lost his body, and now his soul's, like, attached to a scarecrow, but he's got his sword still, and he's, like, on this quest to go get this stuff back, and the guy who works at the bar, like, gets drug into this, and it's very funny, and it's also, like, amazingly well drawn, action packed, and a cool adventure story. And I like the, like, kind of, it's this very we were warriors and gods beyond time, but, like, most of the book is funny. Like, it's this good, like, mix of those kind of things, and that's one of my personal favorite styles.
And this is called Rumble?
Rumble.
Rumble.
R-U-M-B-L-E. Rumble. So go check it out. I think it's super fun. And first 5 issues, it is still an ongoing.
Cool.
So you can jump on now.
Brent?
Follow me, gentle listeners, as we play 6 Degrees of Comics by following Way to Becky Cloonan DC, where I would like to pitch Gotham Academy Volume 1,
Ooh.
issues number 1 through 6, about Olive Silverlock and her adventures and hijinks at Gotham Academy, the city's premier prep school, where weird Batman-related douchery happens.
Yeah.
And I've heard good things about this.
It's gotten a lot of...
Bruce Wayne funds the school.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne funds the school. So yeah, it's gotten a lot of kudos for A, being a good DC book, B, being kind of an interesting, like, being a Bat book, but not at all being a Bat book, and just kind of being one of the handful of titles that supposedly led to the now new wave of DC stuff that's supposed to be coming out.
The all new, all different DC.
Wait, Marvel.
No.
Right. So, yeah, I've heard great things about it. Volume 1 came out relatively recently.
Yeah.
Just collects issues 1 through 6. It'd be a light read, but yeah,
it's an all ages book.
Yeah, it's intended as kind of a all ages.
One of 2 all ages books at DC.
Yeah. So I thought it would be fun to read something a little light, something that DC's produced that we could speak, hopefully, relatively positively of, being the fair-minded folks that we are. And, I just thought it was hilarious that Way and Cloonan had worked together on something, and then I'm pitching a Cloonan book.
Yeah.
So.
Good deal.
It's a really good-looking book. It was one of the books that kind of, like, broke down the house style at DC, because they were very much kind of mired in this, and then books like Batgirl and Gotham Academy did really well, and they were like, oh, people like different stuff, and now...
Yeah, apropos, I read the first issue of Black Canary last week.
Yeah?
That was good.
Cool.
I was surprised. That was a good DC
Whoa.
book.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Oh, times they are a-changing.
Yeah, right?
So Kit, what would you like to recommend for us for next week?
Limitations.
No limits, just
right.
put it out there.
Well, we've already talked about the myriad of similarities that this has to BPRD, or at least everyone's smelling in the air. BPRD, you know.
That
some
color,
fresh,
man.
hot BPRD wafting through the window.
That color.
So I think that one's a given. Obviously, Doom Patrol, I think, is a pretty fun direction, particularly Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, I think. If we're talking about interest in style and aesthetic, I also think you could throw some Grendel in there. I think you could have a little
Matt
bit of fun
Wagner,
with Grendel. Have some fun with Grendel. And if we're talking about the motherfucking time, I was remembering kind of around the time this comic was being a thing was when SLG put out a comic called Clarence Principle. And so if you have a particularly soft, wounded young heart, or your moods are difficult and parents just don't understand, I think that you would enjoy the Clarence Principle. I think this is more just a gentle pat to any sad emo people that are still there and didn't get a chance to read it. A lot of death in it, but also kind of this sweet, moody sensibility to it, talking about what happens when people go and what happens where they don't, and this funny world in between that we occupy. So I think if, I guess, death is a joke, death doesn't bother you so much like in this book, you may enjoy a similar aesthetic and emotional sensibility in that book. And one last thing, if you're just interested in musicians making books, although it's not a particular favorite of mine, I think it's just funny. Courtney Love, a lot of musicians wanted to make comics in a sudden little flurry of things. She made a manga called Princess Eye, and you can see how a comic made by somebody who isn't as into comics doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you're curious and you want to sit them next to each other, that's kind of a funny thing. That it just, for some reason, it was suddenly popular for a bit for a lot of musicians to start talking about comics.
So I realize you've only ever been on long runs with us, which is where we just recommend similar books. Did you want to recommend a book for us to read for next week? And we can vote on it?
Well, shit.
Or we didn't really prepare you for this. I apologize.
I was going to say, there isn't time for Grendel, so I don't really know what to do. You guys do something fun, and I'll be emotionally supportive from a distance, I suppose.
Fair enough. With some good recommendations. Kaylee, what would you like to read next week?
I am going to pitch another songwriter, frontman of popular band.
Frontmans.
Yep, they're my favorite. Who made a comic, and this comic is actually directly related to his music. Hold on. It's a reveal.
I wanted to make an absurd guess that was patently wrong.
Did the middle of her sentence interrupt the beginning of yours?
Now I lost my train of thought. No. Damn it. Okay. And so these comics and a novel that he also wrote that is not as good as the comics directly tie to the music and kind of explain the story of each individual song. And it's the Amory Wars series by Claudio Sanchez, who's the frontman of Coheed and Cambria. And the series I am recommending is 10 issues long, and it's the second Stage Turbine Blade. And it follows Coheed and his wife Cambria as they find out that they've been told that they have been injected or born with this monster virus, and that if they and their children are allowed to continue existing, the Keywork, which is the universe that they live in, will die from this virus. And so they have to make a choice, and they fight this massive religious organization. They find out a bunch of really cool stuff, and there's a lot of sci-fi, and there's a lot of great spaceship battles, and a lot of gruesome murders, and it's just good. I really enjoy it. Well, at least I did. I haven't read it in a really long time, so I'm hoping that I still enjoy it as much as I did. But I love Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're kind of unique in that all of their songs are about the same story, right?
Yes.
Like every single song that they do ties into like an overarching
my understanding
story.
Was that he had originally envisioned these as a series of novels, and then at a certain point decided, like, I'm just going to form a band and turn the story into our music, and then decided to do these graphic novels also telling the same story.
Kinda, a bit of both. I think he had this story that was like knocking around in his head, and he's a fantastic guitarist. Whether or not you like Coheed and Cambria, you have to admit that he is just an amazing guitarist.
I don't have to do anything, Kaylee.
You have
I
to.
don't have to.
You
I'm an
have
adult.
to. You
I
have
do whatever I
no
want.
free will. And so he just kind of used his skill sets to make this band, and it's very much so like this rock opera, which I'm a huge sucker for. And so second stage Turbine Blade is the second installment in the Amory Wars series. The first one is in Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4. It's not as good, and he wants to rewrite it because he didn't have the resources available to him to make it what he wanted.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
That's my recommendation.
It could have been all he wanted. No, sorry. I'm not going to do it twice.
I hate both of you.
Sorry.
I
It's
don't.
all right.
I'm
Par for the
lying.
course, I
can't-
suppose.
I can't hate you guys. Toby,
Yes.
what
So,
would you like to recommend?
for my pitch, I am going to pitch a webcomic,
Ooh.
which has been it's actually released in complete issues as if it was a print comic, of which there are 13 22-page issues.
That's not the comic I thought it was going to be.
And what did you think it was going to be?
I thought it was going to be Dave.
Oh, no. That was originally released as digital comics by Monkey Brain and then
Yeah.
re-released by IDW. And I pitched
Right.
that before.
Right.
No, this is a comic called Oppolpolis by Kit Roebuck. And I'm going to read the description.
Do it.
A public intellectual, a collectivist pop star and her hard-boiled assistant, a spy, an artist, a hacker, 2 cinema zinesters, a baron and his family, a B-movie director turned aristocratic gangster, a group of mask-wearing cultists, a mysterious gunman, a no-nonsense bartender, an immortal grad student, too many dogs, and a race of extraterrestrial beings are all bound together by the mysterious Marvadine. But do any of them really know what Marvadine is? And I read the first couple of issues of this, and thus far it's basically about this intellectual guy, an art critic, and he's going around kind of doing his thing. He meets this weird pop star that's like a bunch of different women who are all the same pop star. Like, imagine if Taylor Swift was a character that like 10 different people were all playing at the same
Like
time.
Gem, if it wasn't just one girl that turned into Gem, but like any
exactly.
pop star could turn into Gem.
And like he meets her and they go to this baron's party and there's like this political strife and it's really weird. It's well drawn. It's super interesting. And there's this mysterious Marvadine. And nobody quite knows what it is, but it's important. And I've kind of been reading it slowly and it grabbed me.
Cool.
It's really well written. So
Very
Oppolpolis. And you can read it for free. It's at oppolpolis.com.
And then they're putting them out as issues now?
You can buy them as print issues, but they're released as a webcomic in 22-page chunks.
Okay.
And there are 13 of them so far.
Got it.
And he's like halfway done issue 14.
Cool.
So if you're interested in knowing the number of pages and the number of things in a thing as previously illustrated through this book, you would like this as well.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
like,
there's
I
some
love that
numbers.
chunk at the end of the first
Yeah.
issue. It still makes me laugh. None of these numbers are related.
So, Chard, what would you like to read?
I'm going to vote for Nimona. As much as I really enjoyed Gotham Academy and as much as I could possibly enjoy Coheed and Cambria, I'm going to pick Nimona. It's so good and I want to talk about it and it's super important and I like it.
You like it?
I like it.
But do you like it?
No,
Oh. Well then.
I don't like anything.
Brant, what would you like to read?
Vote for Rumble.
Ooh.
It sounds like fun.
The art's sweet in that book. I love it.
Cool. Kit, what would you like to vote for?
I
Feel free to vote.
Really abstain. I don't
No, vote.
I don't believe in voting. I just believe in complaining about the way things are and then not doing anything about it.
So Kit is a communist.
That's a gross exaggeration.
If you do not want to vote, you do not have to.
Ain't my call. It's Kaylee's call.
Kit, vote.
Well, whatever you say gets 2 points.
Oh, that's not fair.
Yes,
That really isn't
exactly.
fair.
And that's what I'm all about.
All right, Kit's abstaining. I I really want to read Gotham Academy, but I've been waiting for Nimona to come back, so I'm going to vote for Nimona.
I was also going to vote for Nimona, but since it's going to win regardless, I'm going to throw my vote towards my second pick, which was Gotham Academy.
Oh, cool.
So
Nimona.
Nimona for next week.
2 Patreon suggestions in a row.
Thank you to our Patreon sponsors who are giving us such awesome pitches.
Yeah, super fun. And thank you to everyone who supports us and everyone who listens.
And check out our website for t-shirts, probably.
Yes, and we'll catch you probably. Check it. Maybe. There might be t-shirts. We don't know.
Speculative. Speculatively
t-shirt
t-shirts.
singularity.
They may not even be yours. They could just be some t-shirts.
Yeah, we sell t-shirts.
$20. We found a
shirt at a Goodwill.
Yeah.
And I wore it for 20 minutes in the hot sun, which means it smells terrible. And then we're giving it to you.
Yeah. Shirt auction, plain white shirt, rare, only one of its kind. $6,000.
Perfect. But we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for joining us, Kit, and thanks everybody for listening.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Me From the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.